It's time to think a little bit about data. The president just gave his talk about the NSA. Data-driven analyses are being used to reform, and some would say privatize, and exploit the field of education. Data companies like Uber are being used to rob taxi cab drivers of their normal occupations and turn the working man's economy into an economy where every job can be downsourced to the lowest bidder. Is that the kind of data we need to make ourselves a better society? Is that the kind of data-driven people we want to become? Is that the company we want to be? Is that the country we want to be? That'll be a major theme of our show today, and I look forward to exploring this with you and with our upcoming guests. Our guests will include someone who will be talking to us about the area of education reform, some discussions on Uber and other technology companies, some discussions on the NSA as well. I'm Richard R.J. Eskow, and while we explore that, why don't we take a minute to start with a quick reflection on the president's NSA speech. Now, there hasn't been time yet as of this broadcast to review it in detail, but a couple key elements jumped out from us, and I think they're worth exploring a little bit in full. Those key elements include this. We heard a lot of terms that are designed to make us comfortable. We heard checks and balances. We heard warm stories and stories we all admire about code breakers and the roles that code breakers and other such heroes played in redesigning our economy. We heard stories about checks and balances and how the checks and balances system will keep us whole. We heard that we are a single nation and that those who police our nation's airwaves and cell phones and emails are Americans just like us. And, you know, during this discussion, there's one theme that seemed to be common to me, and that was how similar it all sounded to Wall Street as we were discussing it 4 or 5 years ago. Like our friends in the NSA, Wall Street is obsessed with bigger banks, banks too big to fail, the power that comes from large data, a power that's being questioned by smart analysts, some of whom will tell you that the NSA has too much data, that the NSA can't absorb all the information it collects on us already. We didn't hear about that today, just as we haven't heard about breaking up the too big to fail banks. We didn't hear a lot about accountability. We didn't hear, for example, about the idea that James Clapper, senior administration official who testified before Congress, to all evidence, to all intents and purposes, lied about that testimony before Congress. That was not something we heard about in the president's speech today, any more than we've seen major Wall Street bankers brought before the court and justice for their actions. So I guess the concerns that we might want to have as we go forward and study the president's proposals and this president's speech in greater depth are, how can you change a culture, whether it's Wall Street or whether it's the national intelligence culture, if there's no accountability for criminality, number one. Number two, how can you change a culture when people who violate the law or violate the rules not only are punished, but are enriched by the act? James Clapper, for example, was an executive with a major intelligence department vendor, a major government contractor, and his predecessor went back, I believe, to the very same contractor. As long as we have a revolving door between corporations that are making money at government expense, executives making money at those corporations, executives then going to serve the government and supervising their past and future colleagues, will we see a change of culture? So while it was very heartwarming to hear the president talk about the idea that the people who are objecting to invasions of privacy don't want us to be attacked again by terrorism, fair enough. He countered that by saying the people who run the NSA and similar intelligence agencies are very much like ourselves. They go to their homes, they go to their families, but there's a critical difference here. We don't just want to protect this country for ordinary Americans, like the kind the president described. This country is not just to be protected for people who go to their jobs every day, come home, kiss their wife or husband, and pat their kids on the head. That's a wonderful life, if it's the life you want. But we also need to protect this country for the dissident Americans, for the outliers, for the ones who are not like everybody else. That's what our civil liberties exist to protect. They exist to protect the Muslim. It exists to protect the atheists. They exist to protect the people who are on the fringes of political, philosophical, cultural, or lifestyle thought. And until we have a system that can guarantee these kinds of these protections for all of us, I'm afraid I won't be made comfortable by bromides, by soft and gentle sounding words. I'm afraid I'll be looking for action that protects every kind of American, no matter their lifestyle, no matter their beliefs, no matter their political opinion. And that's the kind of country we're looking for. We'll be right back on Take Action News. I'm RJ Eskow. Thanks for joining us.